What's going on YouTube? Well, Austin Zay back here with another YouTube video, and in this video I want to talk to you about how you can acquire rental properties, aka real estate, make passive income in the real estate world with little to no money down. Now, we're not talking about wholesaling here, okay? Let's go ahead and just jump right into it, but before we do, go ahead and smash that like button, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, how many of you guys were taught that in order to buy a rental property, you gotta take out a mortgage, put down 10 or 20%, and you have to pay property taxes and insurance and all of that good stuff? I'm gonna show you right here how you can literally control as many properties as you want without taking on a ton of debt, without having to have good credit, and without going and paying property taxes, insurance, principal, and pulling out a mortgage on a ton of properties. For the last couple of years, I've had all my friends tell me, Austin, you've got to get in the Airbnb business. You've got to get in the Airbnb business. And I never really understood what they were talking about, right? Now, just like you, I always thought back in the day that you had to have a lot of money to get in the real estate business. And I found out through a friend of mine and having some mentors about 5 or 6 years ago that there was such a thing called wholesaling. And actually, since then, I've made a lot of money wholesaling, right? But I never really realized that there was other ways to actually get involved in real estate with little to no money down. I thought wholesaling was just, one of the only ways. But what I found was there's actually a lot more ways to get involved in the real estate business and make passive income. You see, the wholesaling business is a phenomenal business model, and I make a lot of money doing it, but it's not very passive. Meaning I have to show up every day and I have to train people, and people have to sit on the phones, and we have to send text messages and direct mail and all sorts of other crazy things in order to get the wholesale business going and in order to keep it going, right? And at the end of the day, I can't just go travel and do what I want really with whoever I want, whenever I want, without the business kind of crumbling apart at some point, right? So when I learned this way of real estate investing, I was literally mind-boggled, and I think you're gonna be as well. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a screenshot right now of one of the rental properties I was actually able to create rental arbitrage on, and that is the gross income for last month. Now, the net income and the gross income are two totally different incomes. However, I believe on that particular rental property, we made like $800 in net income without actually owning any property, right? So, meaning, literally 30 days ago, in that 30-day time span, we made $800 on a piece of real estate that we don't actually own. We didn't actually use our own credit to acquire the property, and we never actually paid anything other than some furniture, which we're gonna talk about here in a minute. We're gonna talk about rental arbitrage and how you can do the exact same thing here in just a minute. You can leverage a company like Airbnb or one of the many other companies out there that are very similar. But before we do that, I want to just tell you a quick story about how I got involved and kind of what my backstory is, so you understand that I'm actually not really the smartest guy in the world, and if I can do it, you can definitely do it. I worked a lot of jobs, right? I was just a normal guy, and growing up, my parents always taught me very similar things probably to what you've been taught. A penny earned is a penny saved, right? And at the end of the day, I never really understood that. I never understood how, you could go and basically save a penny, and that was like a penny earned. And that never really clicked with me, but long story short, I fell into the wholesaling game, wholesaling real estate, and many of you are probably wondering the same thing if you're not familiar with wholesaling, but I thought that I had to have a ton of money to get started. And the reality was that I didn't. And now moving forward, I've had much more of an open mind when opportunities like this have presented themselves to me. Now, I've only done a few properties like this, but I'm gonna share with you the knowledge that I do have, and also some knowledge that I've acquired through watching my friends, and some of which have 20, 30, or even upwards of 40 to 50 properties that they've done the exact same thing with. Let's go ahead and just kind of talk about what you're gonna need to know, how it works, and how you're gonna be able to go do the exact same thing. So, I always wondered, everybody was always talking about using other people's money, but what a lot of people weren't talking about is using other people's time. Now, I didn't really understand exactly what that meant until I started to run this particular scenario in my head, which we're gonna talk about literally right now. Simply put, it takes a lot of time to acquire rental properties, right? In a normal scenario, it takes a ton of time because you've got to work your normal day job, right? You've got to work 9 to 5 to actually make the money to put down as a down payment to go actually buy the property. Now, let's just say, for example, you make $50,000 a year, right? Now, let's just say out of the $50,000, you're able to save $10,000 of it. Now, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, to go out and actually purchase a property, you've got to put 20% down. Now let's just say on a $200,000 property, 20% down is $40,000. That means it's going to take you 4 years to save up at $10,000 per year to get the $40,000 to go ahead and buy your first rental property. And let's just imagine that that rental property makes a gross income from the tenants of $1,000 per month. And for extremely easy figuring, let's just say that the net income to you, take home, is $500 per month. It took you 4 years to buy one property, and now you're still saving that $10,000 per year and another $500 per month on top of that, which is the equivalent of $6,000 per year. So in other words, you're now saving $16,000 per year. This means that to buy your next rental property, it would take you 2.5 years to buy that next property. So now you own 2 properties in 6.5 years by literally doing the exact same thing that we talked about in the first scenario. Now, at this point, your total gross profit is $2,000 per month. Your total net profit is $1,000 per month. You're 6.5 years into your real estate investing journey, and you've only acquired 2 properties that net you $1,000 a month, which is $12,000 a year if you do it over time. Now, let's just assume you're able to save that entire $12,000 per year on top of the $10,000 a year that you're already saving from your normal 9-to-5 job. It would take you another 1.8 years to buy your third property, putting you at a total of 8.3 years to buy 3 total properties. I'm not going to go any further, but I think you can see how over time, it takes a ton of time to actually go out there and to become a real estate investor. You've either got to make a lot of money, or you've got to be able to use somebody else's money, other people's money, all together, or you've got to figure out a way to leverage other people's time. What I mean by that is the amount of time that it takes to actually acquire these properties. How can you find somebody else that spent all that time to acquire the exact same property and then leverage that to your favor by eliminating the time altogether and then literally leveraging other people's money all simultaneously, giving you a way to get into the industry right now, leveraging other people's time and other people's money, being able to make the same amount of money, if not even a little bit more, in literally a fraction of the time. That's what we're going to talk about right here. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how do you go out, find a landlord, create rental arbitrage on a property that you don't own and credit that you don't have, and actually make a profit doing this? And how do you do it in the next, let's say, 90 days? Now, we're probably both wondering the same thing, so let's go ahead and break it down for you. First things first, we're going to go ahead and create an LLC. Now, you're probably wondering why you're going to create an LLC, and to keep it very simple, an LLC is just going to protect you, right? Anytime I start a business, I always want to protect myself. If something were to happen and somebody was to come after me, they can only go after that LLC. They can't go after me personally. And again, seek out advice from your attorney, from legal counsel. I'm not an attorney in any way, shape, or form. This is just what I personally do when I start a business. Now, number 2 is to apply, obviously, for your EIN number so you can create a bank account, which you're going to need for direct deposits when we talk about that here in just a moment. Number 3, or you're probably wondering why, and that is actually because an LLC is able to actually have business credit. What happens with a lot of people is that they might be able to go buy a property, right? They might be able to buy a rental property, potentially. They have the money, right? And for whatever reason, they have something on their credit. Maybe it was a bankruptcy from 3, 4, or 5 years ago. And maybe it was something else. And for whatever reason, the banks just don't want to give them the loan. Or for another reason, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment, you're actually going to go apply to lease out the condo, apartment, or property that you're going to create the rental arbitrage on. And what can end up happening sometimes is the landlord can have a set of requirements that you have to meet in order to get approved for that lease. One of which is to have a certain credit score, in which you might not have. Well, the way around that actually is to create the LLC, to apply for the EIN, and that way you can actually go, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, and build some business credit up. And I'm going to give you a few examples of how you can do that. And then when you go to apply for the lease, you can actually get around that because you're not applying in your personal name, you're applying as your business. All right, one of the first options with a trade line is to go ahead and get what they call a net 30. Now, net 30 is essentially where you're able to actually go purchase different items and the payment is actually not due in full for a total of 30 days. Now, a lot of times they'll offer you a discount if you pay in advance, but this is considered a trade line and can be one of many ways to actually go out there and build business credit. One of the ways that I would use it in this particular situation that I'm about to talk about in a moment is actually going out and buying some furniture for the property you're about to create the rental arbitrage on. In which case, it would actually allow you to go ahead and rent out the property a little bit before you actually had to pay the furniture off. Now, obviously, this is only if you're a little bit tight on money, and there's other ways to go about it as well, such as just using a personal credit card or many other options. The last thing to consider is that business credit does build a lot faster than personal credit. So if you're watching this video right now and your personal credit is not that good, one thing to keep in mind and stay positive about is that your business credit can build a lot faster. There's many different ways to do it, and I suggest that you actually do some of your own research to figure out how you can build business credit. Now, if your personal credit isn't bad, then you can always go ahead and apply for these leases in your personal name as well. All right, the thing you've been waiting for is how do you actually get the property, right? You're like, Austin, I've watched like 10 minutes of this video or whatever it's been, but how do I find the property? How do I get the property? And how do I negotiate it with the landlord where it's a win-win? And why would a landlord negotiate it at all? And we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. So the number one thing that you're gonna wanna do is obviously build the rapport with the landlord. One of the things that I look for when I'm doing this is actually going ahead and looking on the MLS, looking on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, Trulia, the different websites out there that feature homes, condos, and apartments, and I'm actually looking for days on market a lot of the times, right? A lot of the times when the days on market are really long or really high, the landlord is more likely to want to get creative with the tenant, right? You know, if it's a property that's in an extremely good area and it's consistently rented out month after month after month, year after year after year, the likelihood that that landlord is going to go ahead and get creative with you and allow you to create some rental arbitrage is not nearly as likely. So when you're going out there, make sure that you're looking for landlords that have a very high probability of wanting to get creative, because at the end of the day, it's vacant right now. And no landlord likes their property being vacant. Essentially, they want to get it rented out one way or another, and they're willing to take slightly more risk to be able to do so. I'm selling them on why they should rent it out to me, right? What the proposition is, and that's actually what we call the rental arbitrage. Rental arbitrage is just like any other type of arbitrage, if you're familiar. It's basically where I'm going to the landlord and I'm saying, hey, look, I'm gonna pay you $1,000 per month to lease out this apartment, right? And I tell them a lot of the times what I'm gonna be doing, because I'm not trying to play Russian roulette with my lease, right? So I'm letting him know what I'm gonna do, what the plan is, right? And I'm selling him on why he should allow me to do so. I have the extra time, I'm gonna be able to manage it, he's not, I'm gonna furnish it, right? Whatever that is. So rental arbitrage is essentially where I would go to the landlord and I would say, hey, look, landlord, I'm gonna rent out your apartment, condo, or house for $1,100 per month. We're just using that number because I just pulled it out of thin air, right? Whatever the number is. But for this particular scenario, it's $1,100 per month. And you're selling him the dream on why you should be able to do that. Rental arbitrage is any amount above that $1,100 per month that you're going to make at the end of it, right? Now, let's just imagine in this particular scenario that, again, your rental, what you're paying the landlord is $1,100 a month. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, right? Wherever you're at. Let's just imagine it's here in Scottsdale, Arizona, because that's where I live. Let's just imagine that you make $100 per night on Airbnb, or a platform just like Airbnb, right? Rental arbitrage has been around for a very long time. So let's just say that 70% of the nights that month get booked, meaning that 30% of the nights, the property was actually vacant. That math would actually equal $2,100 in gross revenue for the month. Now, that's not including cleaning fees, it's not including anything like that, right? That's just for the rent. Now, you can actually do some research on your own, but with Airbnb and other platforms like it, there's actually a little bit of money to be made on the cleaning fees, on the service charges, and things of that nature. But let's just say, for easy figuring, that our gross income is $2,100. We pay our landlord $1,100. In this scenario, your rental arbitrage net income, take home profit to you, is $1,000 per month without actually owning any real estate, right? You have the lease with the landlord, you've agreed to it up front, everything's in the contract, and you're now making $1,000 a month for just managing this particular Airbnb. You can imagine how you could get going a lot faster in the real estate industry from a passive income perspective without actually going out and having to purchase and put down big fat down payments to go and actually get a mortgage on properties. Now, I'm not gonna break down a ton of math for you like I did in the beginning, But again, imagine that you take that $1,000 a month down, but you're not having to go out there and actually put big down payments on properties. You might have to buy furniture and things of that nature, but how much more quickly can you get furniture for $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 when you're making $1,000 a month than having to put $40,000 down, or whatever the number is, every time you actually have to go out and purchase a property? All of a sudden, you take that same 8.3 years that we were talking about earlier, and you condense that down to like 8.3 months to make this same amount of money. Now, a lot of people aren't thinking this way, and there's a lot of people in the world that just simply aren't willing to go out and make it happen. I'm here to tell you that if you can wholesale real estate, if there's other ways that you can make arbitrage, it's perfectly legal, and people have been doing this for a very long time. When it comes to actual rental arbitrage, you just agree on everything up front, and you never really want to play Russian roulette with your lease. So I would encourage you to actually get permission from the landlord, get it in writing, and go out there and actually achieve a maximum level of success doing this. You can imagine if you had 5, 10, 15, or 20 of these properties, you could make a very significant amount of income. You could even hire a team of people, get a team of VAs to help you schedule cleaners and things of that nature. There's a ton of different ideas on how you could actually go out and make it happen. I know for a fact that my team is currently working on scaling this particular business model along with many other in the real estate industry. Now, I'm sure you have a ton of questions, and I know I didn't cover everything in this video. Drop in the comment section down below what I can answer for you. I'm happy to make another video on it, and I'll start to document my own personal journey as we move forward in the Airbnb rental arbitrage line of work.